Alright guys, I've just finished my last essay of the semester for my master's degree, so it's time to finally catch up to Patreon and continue doing these talks. The last video I did, I was talking about Mantis and specifically the contribution Jiang Hualong and Wang Yunsheng made, and how pretty much the majority of Mantis that you see nowadays is a result of these two figures. So today I want to go like one generation back, and that's Liang Xuexiang. So Liang Xuexiang, he was the teacher of Jiang Hualong. Now the issue is, if we talk about Wang Yunsheng, his teacher was Li Zhijian, but it's very foggy where Li Zhijian's Mantis came from and what exactly it was, because Wang Yunsheng, he was the one that took on the name 7-star Mantis. He created that name. The other main student of Li Zhijian was, I can't remember his name, Hao something, but he created the Yuanyang or Mandarin duck mantis. So those two are very similar, but it seems that the majority of what we see as classic 7-star was created by Wang Yunsheng himself. So when you look at a lot of the typical 7-star forms, they were created by him. So I can't really comment on Li Zhijian's Mantis at all, really. So as far as old Mantis, the only verifiable source we really have is Liang Xuexiang. As I said, he's the teacher of Jiang Hualong. So Liang Xuexiang, he learnt from Zhao Zhu. Zhao Zhu learnt from Li Bingxiao. Li Bingxiao is regarded as the first generation of Meihua Mantis. And again, what exactly he did and where exactly it came from is also foggy. But at least with Liang Xuexiang, he wrote several Quanpu. So we have a clear record of what he taught and practiced, which is what I'm going to talk about. So what's interesting is he has 3 main Quanpu. One of them is the Neigongpu, that's all about the internal stuff. So that's mostly the 18 Luohan exercises, Neigong, meditation, internal training, iron body, this sort of stuff. I don't really know a whole lot about that, except that I think that it's a combination of Quanzhen Taoism, exercises from Quanzhen Taoism and some Shaolin Luohan stuff. But I can't comment too much about that. Now, but the other 2 Quanpu that he has there's a lot of great stuff in there that's worth talking about. There are 2. So there's Guanqiang Quanpu, which means the manuscript of staff, spear, and boxing. So the staff and spear mostly is 6 harmony staff, Liu He Gun, from Nantu Shan village. There's some other stuff in there, but that makes up the vast majority of it, and the spear is Liu He Qiang, 6 harmony spear as well. And then as far as the boxing, he lists Bengbu, Luanjie, and Bajou, 3 forms, that's it, nothing. Oh, and the secret hands, the Misho, which are a list of single techniques. So nothing else, no other forms, that's it. What's interesting is that he separates the weapons and the boxing as different styles. So it's not that Mantis has XXX staff form, XXX spear form. It's that he had 3 styles. He had his staff style, he had his spear style, and he had his boxing style. And his boxing style was Mantis boxing. So it's important, I think, to differentiate these. And the boxing was Bengbu, Luanjie, Bajou, and Secret Hands. And then if you look at the other manuscript, 可是有用, which means like something like warriors should be brave or something. I'm not really sure how you translate that, but this one's interesting because in the introduction to it, he says that Wang Long created Mantis, and he created Luanjie, Bajou, and Secret Hands. So this older one, he doesn't even mention Bengbu. He just mentions these two forms, Luanjie and Bajou, which we typically call the mother forms, and he mentions the Secret Hands, which are just single techniques, a list of single techniques. There's about 90 of them. So, and then in the description of Luanjie, he says, Luanjie 名为螳螂界手. So that means Luanjie is also called Mantis intercepting hands. And then for Bajou, he says, 分身 Bajou 名为螳螂匕首. So he says,分身 Bajou means dividing the body into 8 joints. He said 名为螳螂匕首. So it's also called Mantis closing hands. So if we look at this as a system, we've got two forms here. One is Mantis intercepting hands. One is Mantis closing hands. So I've been thinking a lot about what these two phrases mean, and it seems to me that this in itself is a complete system. Luanjie is the basic level stuff. So there's 36 single techniques, and these single techniques are your way of intercepting. So in typical fight situations, you want to dispatch an enemy quickly. So these are 36 techniques which are designed for intercepting an attack and finishing the opponent quickly. So it's kind of like most fight situations would be solved with the techniques from Luanjie. And then Bajou is saying 螳螂匕首, Mantis closing hands. And if you look at Bajou, there's a lot of this very close in, the elbows, the shoulders, the knees, the hips, you know, this close in stuff. A lot of it's for countering clinches and grapples and things like that. And so it's for dealing with more difficult fights. A phrase I hear in China for some of these more advanced techniques would be 好手对好手. So it's like when a skilled fighter meets a skilled fighter. You've got your typical techniques, your sort of go-to techniques that you'll fight with somebody similar or lower level to you. But then when a skilled fighter meets a skilled fighter and you need much more finesse, you need much more advanced techniques, that's when the Bajou comes into play. I'm not sure if that's what he meant because they're very vague comments, but after thinking about it and looking at the two forms, that's what I think they mean. And another interesting point to cover here is that a lot of the Misho, the secret hands, I can't really decipher what they are because they're just names of moves. There's no explanation. So some of them are very vague. For example, there's one called Feng Po Shou. It's like a crazy wife hand. I mean, with no explanation, it's pretty much impossible unless somebody actually knows the technique and they can show you. But I've gone over the list, I've compared it with other stuff, I've spoke to my shifu about it. He knows some of them, not all of them. I don't think anybody knows all of them anymore. Most of them that we do know have been incorporated into the Jiayao series of forms. So, you know, for example, like the Jiangshou Lei, which is like a thunderclap hand. You've got here, up, down. You can see that in Jiayao Part 1 towards the end. You've also got the Fantian Fudi, which is in Jiayao Part 4, which as you can see me practicing with my shifu in a video I put up recently. So yeah, you can find quite a lot of these techniques in Jiayao, and I think that these are techniques that you would practice singly. They're not part of any form, although they've been incorporated into Jiayao. And I think in the olden days, I would imagine that they probably practiced these as line drills, much like what you see in Xinyi Liu He Quan today. You know, just taking a single technique and just drilling it over and over again. So that pretty much sums up what I have to say about Liang Xuexiang. Although the line that comes from him is commonly referred to as Meihua Tanglang, he himself didn't actually call it Meihua Tanglang, he just called it Tanglang Quan. It's only his generation of students that started to use the name Meihua Tanglang. So I don't know if he used the name but he just didn't write it, or if his students all for some reason got together and decided to call themselves Meihua Tanglang. That's not very clear, but it is an interesting point to notice that he just referred to it in his writings as Tanglang Quan. So yeah, I hope that gave you a little bit of an insight into the mantis of Liang Xuexiang. It was a much more compact and smaller system than what we do today, and the style of fighting was quite different to the stuff that's come afterwards. It's a lot more about ending a fight quickly than kind of facing off and dueling, if that makes sense. So yeah, thank you again, and I'll try and do a few more videos on my research into mantis, because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to cover. So yeah, thank you once again.